today, obviously, we're going to state the date. It's June the 13th. Today, they had closing arguments for the Karen retrial. We've obviously covered this. Most of YouTube, I feel like, has covered this with so much going on. And we would like to take this chance to say thank you for the support from our audience, for following us and watching our coverage. And even with your comments, sometimes, boy, you tear us apart. But that's what we love about having that comment section, because some things, these guys are full-time lawyers. They can't watch the trials 24/7, but you guys have really put this commitment in. And what is most important, regardless of how that verdict is justice for John O'Keefe, if it can be found. Mm-hmm. We've expressed some concerns about the way things have gone. Is that what the saddest part of this is that might not happen. Yeah. But today, to put it on record, even though this podcast may come out after the verdict has been announced, we are putting it on in the books for posterity. Yep.
I just personally don't think that it's going to be they're definitely, in my opinion, not going to come to a verdict today. They've
I don't think so
through
either.
Closing statements of both the defense and the prosecution. Then they had lunch, and then they are going to have at least an hour or two of the judge going over the actual
charge. We're fucking talking so we can damn finish this.
The actual jury charges.
They said they were going to ask the jury to stay till if they were willing to stay till 5 or 5:30 for deliberations.
That's what I'm saying. You think they're going to deliberate on a case on a 30-something plus day case that you think they're going to deliberate for 2 or 3 hours and come to a verdict? It would have to be overwhelming guilt or innocence for them to
if they come back early.
If they come back early, it's because
I would think Monday or Tuesday at the earliest would be the verdict.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are our thoughts before we give our predictions? Do we have any hot takes from any hot takes? All right.
Chase has got some hot takes.
Hot takes from the closing.
9.5 out of 10 for the defense. I love
Alan Jackson.
Agreed.
I think that they did a fantastic bang up job. They did better than they did in the first one. They simplified their case. They realized that one of the elements that needed to be actually proven was that there was a collision. They focused on that. They hit it over and over and over again in their closing, in their opening, all throughout the testimony, the witnesses that they brought up. They talked about the lack of witnesses. That talked about the fact that Proctor was a biased investigator.
I particularly liked, speaking of when he was talking about Proctor not seeming to care or even investigate, like the waterfall bar footage, and that part of it, which I thought was you're saying, hey, look, we don't have all the answers. So before you make a decision, you need to understand that. So
within 24 hours, he was messaging his friends that the girl's going away for a long time and stuff like this. So I thought the defense did a fantastic job. I thought that Brennan did a better job than Lally in this particular case. I give Brennan
enough, but
a seven, a solid 7 as far as how he presented the case, but it was really clear in the case that he's the criminal defense lawyer and not necessarily a prosecutor. There was a lot of times in which he was commenting on witness testimony that I thought was inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. That's my point.
But okay, sorry. But overall, I think that if the jury follows the law, they will acquit Karen Reed. On all charges.
I 100% agree because it's a reasonable doubt, and there's a lot of reasonable doubts. And like you said, and they killed it. The defense did on this trial with you can't even prove there was a collision. Mm-hmm. If you can't prove the first element, guess what happens? It's over. Yeah. So and I was a little disappointed in some of the things that have come out from the prosecution. I think they've acted extremely unethical in a couple of avenues. Whether you think she's guilty or not, you still have to play the game the right way. And I question some of the prosecution's tactics and why the mistakes were made. They seem intentional. Maybe they're not, but they seem intentional. And they seem to kind of wanted to muddy the water with the jury almost kind of and bring in things that weren't admissible that they knew and kind of redo the statements they did. It's just not real. It's not clean like it should be.
Right. This is why I say he was more of a criminal defense attorney than a prosecutor, because the prosecutor has an actual duty to present evidence, even this exculpatory, to the defendant and present all the evidence.
They have a duty to disclose it. They don't have a duty to present it.
Very true. To disclose it, but also like their job is to focus on the truth. And I think that one of the things that you were talking about was the fact that he just wanted to muddy the waters, even when it was, if the defense was making a good point, he wanted to muddy the waters on what the defense was saying when his job was to actually just prove what he thought the truth was.
To me, it just reeked of ego and both. I mean, honestly, both sides are just so caught up in winning that we've lost sight of what the case is about. And a man died.
Yeah.
And that is frustrating for me, a prosecutor's son. And, you present the evidence you have, like you said, Chase, and that's what you do. And if the evidence isn't there, then so be it.
You can't convict.
But you just don't do the things, the gymnastics that are happening, the legal gymnastics that are happening on both sides. You don't do that. It's just, I don't like it. But
so there were parts of the closing I watched with Brennan's closing. There were parts, and just a reminder, I think that she's innocent. Do I think that that's the way it's going to go for her?
You mean
concerned.
that you feel that she's not guilty?
I personally think that she is innocent. I use that word.
Okay. So
However, I believe that unfortunately, I think that there's a chance that she will be found guilty. I think that she will be found guilty of the charge where intoxicated and
lesser included.
Yeah. I think that that's what she's going to be found guilty of. I will say, to piggyback off something that you said, during Brennan's closing, though, he had a couple times where he just came across as petty with like bringing back up to the jurors, hey, remember when this expert argued with me? Who cares? Like, get to the point. And so that kind of irritated me a little bit. But then other parts of his, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, you're kind of making some good points because you are making it, especially on the parts where he talked through. He pointed out like a timeline of like Karen allegedly hitting John, but then the phone calls, and he turned the phone calls into, whereas I view them as someone who had no idea, just knew that this person was not in her home where he was supposed to be, and she was pissed off and she was drunk and she's making these voicemails.
A crazy drunk bitch.
A crazy drunk, yes, that is what. And I was like, that makes sense. And then he's up there and he's like, but why didn't she call anyone else to ask where he was? And I was like, well, honestly, from what we've seen, those other people didn't like her very much.
Very true.
So why is she going to call any of those people? Except she did call them the following morning. So there were a lot of things he did bring up that I was like, oh no, like what you're now making the jury kind of like, I could see where it would cause
the argument that it still goes back to. It still goes back to this is a criminal case.
There's not enough.
I know. Even that.
Are
you still have reasonable doubt.
Yeah,
like,
Are
you torn about who's making a good point?
She's torn on, is she innocent? You're not torn, is she guilty? She's not guilty.
Would I make a good juror or a bad juror?
Well, it depends. Yeah, depends. But I'm not saying she's innocent. I wasn't there. I don't know. But the evidence presented is not enough. That's it.
This is why I think we should have professional jurors.
I mean, my prediction will be that she will either be found not guilty of everything, or if they allowed, which I don't know if they allowed any type of just DUI charge.
Right.
I know that they talked about that, whether that could be included as she could just be found guilty of DUI.
Yep.
Obviously, everybody who's
she's pretty much admitted to
everybody
that.
who's watched any of the trial knows that, which, if I ever go on vacation, I might want to go up there. Those guys seem like they have a good time. Go from bar to bar.
What is it, the waterfall?
Is that what it is?
Waterfall.
Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 9?
I don't know if I ever want to get in a car up there because it seems like everybody's just riding around.
Except apparently they make
6 to 7 shots and.
But apparently they
drinks.
make weak drinks, so you might have to take your
weak drinks. That's right. I think she'll either be found not guilty, or it'll be another mistrial. And the reason why I say there might be another mistrial,
jury.
Could be
hung jury,
no doubt,
is because just seeing the nature of the people that are pro Karen Reed and anti Karen Reed and pro Officer John O'Keefe, that a lot of times makes them absolutely anti Karen Reed.
Yeah.
There might be some of those people on the jury that see it the same way. So they might, when we're talking about a criminal verdict, we're talking about a unanimous 12-person, all agreeing that this person's not guilty, or all agreeing that this person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of these charges. So that's why I'm saying that I think there's a good possibility still of it being a hung jury and ending in a mistrial.
If you look at any kind of social media on Karen Reed and you go to the comments, excellent point.
Strong viewpoints.
They're both sides, and they're not like,
and they're on the same.
It is.
One or the other.
You are a terrible person for thinking that she's not guilty. You're a terrible person for thinking she's guilty. Yeah, you're an idiot. So get 12 people on the same page of it.
We actually had a comment. Okay, so one thing, we buried the lead 100%. Thank you we now have 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. Woohoo! But this is really funny to me, and I promise you, whoever you are, I don't remember your handle, and I'm not picking on you. I just did find this kind of funny because she complimented us and was like, "Yay, congratulations for reaching 3,000." But then she goes, "But I think you guys all think that Karen is guilty," and then sort of kind of gave us a little. Hope,
breakdown
and hope that
we try to be.
It was like, I hope
unbiased.
that you aren't. But she said, I hope that you aren't lawyers that are as basically as shady as these people or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we are.
and I think my comment back was along the lines of, well, yeah, we hope not. We hope that that's portrayed on the show, that we 100% are not this way. But also, thanks for the support. But also, hey, excuse me, I didn't say she was guilty. Just remember that.
That's right.
Okay. But I thought that was funny that even on a congratulations post for us.
I don't think that she actually did anything either.
Except be drunk.
If she did anything, she was drunk, and it would have been an accident that I don't even know whether or not she knew that she did anything.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, in my opinion, based on everything I've looked at, the evidence doesn't support her being found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And the closing arguments, which I watched about 3/4 of the defense and about a half of the prosecution on my way back and forth to different detention centers, visiting guests.
Doing your real job today.
That happen to be my clients. Yeah. It's one of those things that you have to be able to convince people beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yep.
And I think that the defense this time around did much better instead of claiming reasonable doubt and trying to extrapolate and show everybody
who could have done it,
and all these alternative things. They did a better job of just saying that this doesn't make sense. That's reasonable doubt. This doesn't make sense. That's reasonable doubt. This person said this, and this person said this. That's reasonable doubt. And there's this, any one of these things, which that's what we try and convince, when I do any criminal defense work, which I don't do that much anymore, is in trial work, it's we put you on the jury because we believed you are reasonable people. And if you have any doubt whatsoever about Karen Reed's guilt, then that's a reasonable doubt because you're a reasonable person that we put on a jury.
That's a good point.
And we're in criminal defense, you're looking for one person, one person to hang their hat and say this person's not guilty. If we get, another 11 that say they're not guilty, great. Right. Anything that's not a conviction, is a win in the criminal defense realm.
But I do have a question for all the attorneys.
Great.
Here. Okay. One last question. Would you take a civil case suing Karen Reed for the wrongful death of John O'Keefe?
Ooh, that's a good one because that's what we do.
My answer is yes.
Absolutely. Because it's more likely than not.
It's more likely than not that something happened, but it's not even close to reasonable doubt.
I would say that I would have to do a really thorough analysis of what the available
coverages are.
What the available resources were.
I think mine is more right than yours. I think mine's more right than yours.
These are things that we have to think about as civil lawyers. We have to determine whether or not things are economically feasible. And obviously, Karen Reed has a substantial amount of resources behind her. Whether or not they're her personal resources or whether or not they're her family and supporters of her, I don't know who's paying for her criminal defense team. You know what I mean? But if you were to look at it and you're like, the only thing that Karen Reed has is, $50,000 worth of assets, and there's no insurance coverage that would cover
insurance.
Intentional conduct.
That's not intentional.
What if she's got $25,000 in coverage?
Then you get the 25. That's all you get. But that's what you better than nothing.
But then you have to think about it. Is it economically feasible to pursue this case on behalf of a client? We talk to clients all the time, and I say, look, people come to us because we do injury cases, mostly wrongful death, serious injury cases, but people come to us because, I was involved in an accident. I had to go to med now, and I got a $400 bill, and the insurance company is only offering to cover that and give me $1,000.
Yep.
And I tell them, take it.
Take it, yeah.
There's nothing that what I'm going to do for you, I want to provide a service,
Sean, I got one
and I want to get paid for it.
Make a difference, but you got to make a difference.
But I don't want to prolong this process for you for 3 to 6 to 8 months, and us get a certain amount of money, and attorney's fees come out of it, and expenses come out of it, and you end up with $1,000.
Yeah, what you were going to end up with anyway.
I don't remember the guy's name, but Victor tells this story all the time. Excuse me. The old lawyer, and if Vic says he's an old lawyer, he's probably passed away by now. But Vic would say he was a judge at one time, and he would say, "There's a dead man over there, and somebody's going to pay for it."
One way or the other.
And that's a lot of this for my argument on the civil side, not the criminal side. Yeah. The civil side is Officer O'Keefe he was killed. I mean and somebody's going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think if Karen could write a book, she could do public appearances. She could, even if she's acquitted of this thing. And if I were the O'Keefe family, I would want her to not benefit at all from any of that
But
stuff.
the sad thing about it is, I think I'm more closer to Lindsay on this, is that I really don't think that she did anything.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to him, but I don't think that the injuries that he received
are consistent
at all with her striking him.
I think her behavior is more like someone who got really drunk, does not actually remember what happened.
Yeah.
And even the next morning with some of the things that they're like, she was still in
you're drunk.
I mean, I'm not trying to get too personal, but let's be honest, I'm a 42-year-old woman. I've had some rough nights, okay, where the next morning was also.
You've been intoxicated?
Maybe once or twice.
Okay.
And these once or twice, that's what I'm talking about. I'm using these examples.
There's 2 times.
But there's that haze, the next morning sometimes we're like, your head's not clear. Yeah. Because there's alcohol still in your system.
Plus you're pissed off because your boyfriend that you're already having kind of a tumultuous relationship with didn't come home last night.
Do not underestimate the power of a woman scorned, okay? And
listen,
at that point,
we're not going back.
I know we're not going to get into all that, but
and this thing will be 5 hours long.
I know you're right. We got so anyway, we got to see where the chips.
So
where the chips
innocent
fall
on
Karen.
everybody's innocent.
Everybody I'm saying not
innocent.
Guilty.
You're saying mistrial. There's a 50-50 mistrial. Innocent.
Not guilty. Not guilty or mistrial.
If you're not guilty, you're innocent.
No, that's not true.
That is true.
That is not true. And what I think is going to happen are not the same.
Personally, in my heart, I think that she's innocent, other than driving under the influence of alcohol.
Right. I agree, but I believe she'll be found not guilty, which is completely different.
But also, I think Brian Higgins is a piece of crap, and I hope that.
That's your non-lawyer take.
Brian Higgins.
Brian Higgins.
Sorry, Brian Higgins. But I've seen enough videos of you, buddy.